Good morning. Before we go ahead and get into our conversation with our dear friend and sister Kate, just a couple of shout outs I wanted to make. We are a new church, but we are a growing church. And some of the struggles as a new church that is growing is that oftentimes we can't steward the growth that we have. And as a result of that, my wife and I are always thinking about how to make sure we pace ourselves. We slow down. And I always pray to God, God, help us to only be as big as the amount that we can steward and love. And because of that, I just want to take a moment. Yesterday we had membership, and we had 40 people become new members at Beloved Church. I know it's a little awkward, but would you stand to your feet if you were at membership yesterday and you became a member of Beloved Church? Just stand.
Yes.
Welcome you to Beloved. Stand. I see you. Stand. I see you back there, over there, a few more. All right. And the last thing is, before we transition, we just ended our second year of home groups, our community groups. If you loved your small groups this past year, make some noise. We had about 200 people inside our small groups, and during the summer months, we take a break from Behold. We take a break from our community groups as we rest and review, and then we get restarted in August in the fall. So, all right.
Hello. Okay, now the fun begins. Okay, so for those of you guys that have been coming out, we know that we've been going through a marriage series, and we said over the past 3 weeks that our last Sunday would be a conversation on dating and singleness, and so I'm so excited to introduce our guest here today. But before I do, I wanted to give her a formal introduction. She's one of our dearest friends, Kate. She and her husband, JJ, both lead a organization, or I want to say more like a ministry called Heart of Dating. And some of you guys might even be like covert fan people that have listened to Heart of Dating before, but they exist to provide resources for Christian dating. They have a podcast that has over 6.7 million downloads, 250 episodes on dating, and they have a conference. And recently I was on their website, and I thought this was just so funny, so this is my way of introducing her. On the homepage, it reads, it says, quote, "Believe me, I've seen it all and dated it all. And if you're anything like I was, you're probably fed up with advice from well-meaning pastors who got married at 22 and never had to actually swipe their way into oblivion." And when I read that, I was like, honey, people are sick of us. They're
We got married
fed
at 24.
up with us.
We got married at 24. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so for the record, we got married at 24, not 22. But I was like, oh my goodness, this is what people think. No, I'm sure maybe some of you guys think that. But I'm just so excited because I feel like this is a topic that's not addressed typically on Sunday morning. So I want to invite Kate up here to come up. And if you guys could just give her a hand.
Hey guys!
So Kate is here with Eleanor, also her beautiful daughter, who's only 3 months old. So she's here.
She's sleeping.
Oh
my gosh!
So Kate, do you want to take a moment just to share with us your story and introduce yourself?
Also, you guys, it's so good to be back. I've been to this location a few times, but the last time I spoke, you guys were at what was it called? The community center?
Or the event center.
Yeah. So this is awesome to just see how much this community has grown. JJ and I love Beloved Church. We always tell people about you guys, and we love Will and Andrea. So thank you guys for having me and having us. It's really such an honor. So to tell you a bit about who I am, Heart of Dating. Here's the thing. You may see I'm wearing a ring, and now I have a baby, and everyone's always asking, they're like, okay, so you're doing Heart of Dating for 6.5 years now, but now you're married and you're a mom, so like it's going to be Heart of Marriage, right? You're like moving away from the dating people, right? And I'm like, no. Why would we be Heart of Marriage? Like, I'm still figuring out marriage. Yeah. Don't ask me marriage advice, but dating advice, I got you, okay? So just a little bit of my background and why I'm up here today and why I started Heart of Dating. So I started dating at the ripe age of 14, probably not the best idea of my parents, but I did date, and I dated back to back to back for basically 10 years, you guys, from 14 to 24. And in that time, I dated all different kinds of people. And a lot of times I was putting my identity in getting these guys to like me and getting these guys to choose me. And I was so afraid of rejection. I was so afraid of relationships ending. And I often crossed physical boundaries, to be honest with you. And I would do things just to get the guy to stay with me. Eventually, the end of that 10 years led me to a very awful, abusive relationship. And I was in that relationship for about 2.5 years. It was abusive in every sense. And that is where, at the end of that relationship, I realized I had no idea who Kait was outside of dating and outside of like performing. I had no idea, like, who is Kait without a man in her life? Who is Kait just as me? Like, I was terrified of doing things even by myself. And so, it's a long story of how I got out of that relationship, but got out of that relationship, went on a journey of healing to really find out who does God say that Kait is. And took some years off of dating, much needed. And when I was ready to re-enter the dating space, quote, ready, I'm sure we'll talk about how do you know you're ready to date. But when I felt like I was ready to date again, I researched everything I could find on Christian dating. Everything. This is my later 20s. I'm now almost 35. So I researched everything I could find. And it was usually that one sermon a year, right, from a pastor talking about dating. And it's like the same sermon over and over again. So I was like, okay, but like, I need more. Like, what do I do with situationships? What do I do with, the guy I like in my friend group and at church? Like, how do I navigate those things? How do I navigate online dating? Nobody's talking about that. And so in 2017, I actually went through a massive breakup to a guy that I thought I was going to marry. He ended it with me. And it was in that breakup that I felt the Lord calling me to start Heart of Dating. And I'll be honest, for me, as a single person who had dated all different kinds of guys, had done it all the wrong ways, I was like, no, like, I'm not, God, why are you calling me? I don't know how to do this thing. Like, pick somebody else. And I truly felt like the Lord said, if not you, Kait, then who? Like, nobody is doing this. I have called you and I will equip you. And so, man, I went out there with still like a little bit of fear and nervousness, and I started this podcast, Heart of Dating, in 2018 as a single gal, and now we are here today. And I never thought I'd be doing this ministry now with my husband, which, fun fact, right, the last time we came here, you guys, like, we had just gotten engaged. JJ was just announced to the world. He was not even a part of Heart of Dating. And now he's like doing it with me full time. So crazy how God works.
That's crazy. I mean, I'm just thinking about last time you came. I think I shared this with you guys if you were here last time she came, but I shared that when we first met, we were strangers. So I was like, oh, what do you do? And she's like, I have a podcast on dating. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And I was like, so how many episodes do you have? She's like, 60. And I was like, what? I was like, what do you talk about for 60 episodes? And she's like, everything. And I love,
Everything.
yes, and I love meeting people who just, it's your passion. You could tell it's coming from a place of experience, pain, and redemption. And so I just want to continue what you talked about as you were introducing yourself. I think there are some people in this room who grew up in the church, and if you're like me, it's like, date to get married, but don't date until you're ready to get married, and don't date till you know you're gonna get married. And then when you get married, that's it. Right? And so no one ever talked about...
I just want to publicly apologize to all my old youth students who are in this room that I've said that to on stage, on record right now. Love y'all. And by the way, I'm just up here for stage decorations. That's really the only reason why I'm here, and I'm her security blanket. Back to you.
So I was like, honey, I need you up here. But also, there are some of you guys in here that might be new to the faith. And you're like, what does it mean to date as a Christian? Because that's not something people talk about, right? So, Kait, do you want to just talk about what Christian, I want to quote, Christian dating is and what that means?
Yeah, totally. So for those of you guys that have researched this, if you've ever researched it, dating, literally the word dating is not in the Bible at all, okay? So when we, as Christians, look to the Bible for how to do things like marriage and friendship and so many things, like dating is literally not there because back in the day, people had arranged marriages, which, praise God, my parents did not choose who I had to marry. I'm sure some of y'all feel that way. But I'm like, okay, but now we have dating that really has only come on the scene in the last 100 years. And this is a crazy fact a lot of people don't know, that dating actually, one of the first uses of dating was actually for prostitution. And so the roots of dating are pretty ugly in some ways. And then, of course, throughout the years, we have the sexual revolution, and then dating becomes this whole hookup culture thing that we now experience in secular culture. And so we saw back in the 90s, early 2000s, the ultra purity culture movement, which then said, thanks to Josh Harris, kiss dating goodbye and just date in groups and only date if you know you want to marry someone, which I have a whole theory on. I'm like, how do you know you want to marry someone if you don't know them? Like, that's insane. How do I know that I want to marry this guy if I don't even know him? I don't know who he is. Like, why would I date to marry if I don't know this person? Anyway, so we had the Christian culture swing opposite direction of like hyper intentional. Let's be so intentional in dating. And so you have these two like paradigms, right? You have secular dating, which is all about how can this person make me feel amazing? Like, what can they do for me? And it's like lack of commitment. So, okay, you have an issue or we have some conflict, on to the next. Okay, this person isn't filling my bucket anymore, on to the next. So easy. The divorce rate has skyrocketed. The divorce rate in Orange County is over 80% alone. So you see that in culture, divorce is rampant. Okay, and then you have on the Christian side, we have this hyper intentional, we're afraid to date, we're afraid to go on a date with somebody because what this means, oh my gosh, you went to coffee with him, oh my gosh, do you love him? Do you think that he's gonna be your future husband? And it's like so much pressure versus the secular world. They're like, I'm not even thinking about that. I'm just trying to like have fun over here. So you have these two big paradigms, and what we love to do at Heart of Dating is kind of come in between that somewhere and say, okay, what does it look like to date with intention, but not put so much pressure on this situation, okay? So this is how we would define dating as a Christian. Dating as a Christian is a time to build friendship and date someone that you are curious about, okay? And through time, the key word is through time, as you get to know this person, you are taking it one date at a time. So on the first date, I'm not thinking about the end game. On the first date, I'm just thinking about, do I know enough information to go from A to B? Do I know enough information to go on a date with this person one more time? On the second date, I'm asking myself, do I know enough information to go out on a third date with this person? Do I know enough information to go out on a fourth date with this person? And so you are trying to see through a period of time if you actually want to commit to this person, okay? And then you want to see if you want to be in a relationship, okay? So dating is different than a relationship. I'm sure we'll talk about the stages of dating. But we have to have intentionality without also putting this hyper pressure. A first date is just a first date. It's literally 60 to 90 minutes getting to know someone different from you and getting curious about them. Not sizing them up for marriage, but saying, okay, this is another amazing man or woman of God. What can I learn about them? How can I honor them? What can I do to show them that they are loved by God? This doesn't have to be your spouse, and a first date isn't a failure if it doesn't get to a second date. So I think there's a way as Christians that we can be intentional without going into that hyper hookup culture world of the secularism, and also though without also sizing everyone up for marriage.
What would you say? I'm sorry. You take over if you need to.
No, go.
Because I pastor a lot of people. I've pastored people who think they're in a relationship. One of them thinks they're in a relationship.
Yeah.
The other one thinks they're just in the dating phase.
For sure.
How would you encourage boundaries and clarity so one doesn't get hurt and one's not confused?
Totally. So we love talking to church communities, okay? Because some of y'all are in this room maybe dating. Some of y'all are not sure if you're dating. Some of y'all are in a situationship where you're like, I have feelings, don't know if they have feelings, like what's going on. Okay, you might be sitting next to them right now. Totally fine, all right? It's all good. So let's help to bring some clarity in this room. Let's talk about quickly the stages of dating. Yeah, so specifically, usually when people talk about dating, they talk about 4 stages: single, dating, engaged, married. And that's also a great book by Ben Stewart. Great, great, great book. But the word dating is so confusing because everyone in this room, I guarantee, has a different definition of dating. Does dating mean I went on one date with this guy? Does dating mean that I'm exclusive and I'm not on the apps anymore and I'm just talking to this person? Does dating mean that I'm looking at rings and considering getting engaged to this person? Does dating mean courting for marriage? Like, what does dating mean? We all have a different definition of dating, and the reason is because of the area you grew up in, the influences around you, how your parents talked about dating, how your friends talked about dating, the shows you watched on TV, to be honest with you, and any pastors that you received counsel from or leaders you received counsel from. So that's why dating is so confusing, because we're all going into dating having our own rule book, thinking this is the way to date. This is how you do it. And then I guarantee, almost 99% positive, the person across from you, they also have their own rule book with their own rules, thinking, no, this is how to date. And so that's going to clash, right? Because you guys both are thinking, oh, after a first date, on the end of the first date, he should be asking me out on a second date. And the guy's thinking, oh, I don't want to do that. I don't want to seem over-eager. So I'm just going to say nothing, and then I'm going to wait a few days and then maybe check in with her, because I don't want to seem like overeager and like I'm obsessed with her, right? So he has his own rule book, you have your own rule book, and you're sitting there being like, gosh, this guy isn't intentional. Like, why can't he just be clear? And he's over here thinking like, I'm doing this the right way. I'm pursuing her amazing, right? And so it's all confusing. So let's talk about how we can maybe redefine that and get some clarity. The best thing is we add a fifth stage in this process. And so instead of going single, dating, engaged, married, we'll go single, dating, relationship, engaged, married. And so how that changes it is dating is now not this catch-all word that means anything from I went on a first date to I'm getting engaged to this person. And instead, dating is that phase before a relationship. So to get more specific, dating is that 60 to 90 days of going out on dates with somebody to see through a little bit of time, do I want to actually commit to this person? Because nothing is worse than going on 2 to 3 dates, thinking they're the bee's knees, bringing them to church, holding hands, and now you guys are like a thing and everyone has seen it. And then, a few more dates in, you find some red flags and you're like, oh, I don't know about this. But now everyone's so pumped, everyone's seen it, and now you're like, I don't know how to end things because now there's so much pressure and I don't know what to do. And if you do end things, now all these people are involved and now they have all these questions and now you have to answer all these questions. Like, don't do that to yourself, okay? Instead, take 60 to 90 days to get to know them. Go on dates with them. Not dates that are like 7 hours long, okay? I'm talking about like 60, 90, 2-hour dates, okay? 60 to 90 minutes or 2-hour dates. And dating, as you do that, you're asking questions to figure out if you want to be committed to this person in a relationship. And so if you guys are both kind of on the same page about what dating means, which could be a conversation, then it's like, okay, we're going to go through about 3 months of going on dates until we see and make a decision. Do we want to be in a relationship with one another?
Yeah, I'll just make a comment and give it back to Andrea. That was where our tension was, because I thought we were together, and she thought we were just dating. So I remember, like, when I was pursuing her, she texted me, oh, I was in a red Mercedes today. I was like, huh? I know who has a red Mercedes, and I know he likes you. And I remember I called her, I said, did you tell him about us? She said, why would I tell him about us? We're not together. I said, not in my mind. We are together. And I remember we had to.
In his mind, we were on the road to marriage.
Yeah, absolutely. I was like,
I'm liking this red car. Let's go.
Yes, that distinction is actually very helpful, because I've met a lot of people who are like, oh, I'm with this person. And then I actually end up talking to the other person. They're like, oh, I'm just getting to know them. And I'm like, uh-oh. They have two different narratives in their mind. And one thing I would like to mention is, I think sometimes that happens because there's a lack of boundaries. Because sometimes within the dating phase, that person who thinks they're dating is actually treating that person like they're in a relationship, like holding hands, like being a little more intimate, like talking at 1 a.m. So it's actually misleading the other person, thinking, oh yeah, they are in a relationship, and they get confused later. So I think having that distinction and boundaries is actually very helpful, because she actually did that. She had boundaries. She's never held my hand. She never called me late at night.
And you were like, you need to tell everybody about us right now.
Because I was telling everybody. I was like, we's together. And it took 2 years. But anyways, back to you.
Well, I think that's what I love about when you talk about dating, Kate, because you talk about that process, right? You talk about how it's that relationship key that a lot of us just kind of skip over and think we need to jump to engaged. But I want to turn the conversation a little bit to talk about the actual process of dating. How important do you think attraction and chemistry and even type, because I know you love talking about type, how important do you think that is? Because our story, again, is we were friends, said hi to each other, never thought twice about each other. We were friends for years, and then all of a sudden, he's like, I like you, and I'm like, what? And so for us, like that, it wasn't there initially. That chemistry, that attraction, it wasn't there. And so how important do you think that is, especially if we're asking and, encouraging people to have that evaluation period where it's like 60, 90 days? How important do you think that is?
Yeah, it's honestly not that important at the beginning, because it's what's so much more important is their character and who they are. And honestly, you have to define what marriage is in order to answer that question, because a lot of us don't really know what is marriage for. What is the definition of marriage? Why do you want to get married? Like, have you ever asked yourself that question? Why do I really want to get married? A lot of times it's like, I feel it's my calling, or, just I want to get married. Like, I don't want to be lonely. I want to be with someone. But if we look biblically, like the real reason to get married is to glorify the Lord better together. And if you can't do that, then don't be with the person, right? So really, I heard my friend say this once in her vows, actually, that a relationship, a marriage should be not 1 + 1 = 2. It should really be 1 + 1 = 3, which means that together we're better for the kingdom than apart. That's the only reason you should really get married. And so if you have a definition of marriage that is kingdom-minded, like, okay, I'm going to be with this person to glorify the kingdom, and if I'm going to do that, then I'm not going to settle for anybody that is not going to come alongside me, or we have a joint calling or passion, right? We can support each other's passions, right? But if you think of that definition, then really where is chemistry in that definition at all? Now, I don't think God wants us to be unhappy or just in a business type relationship of like, you're amazing, I'm amazing, let's get together because we can do good things for the Lord. It's not just that. I don't think God wants you to be with someone that you're not friends with, that you don't enjoy. But I really, really, really don't think that chemistry and that spark is really, honestly, what the Lord cares about at all. And yet, that's what culture and society tells us to look for. It's in our face everywhere. Okay, like spoiler, or not spoiler, but fun fact, this is sad, but I watch Love is Blind, okay? And the reason I love this show...
Wait, I love Love is Blind.
Yeah, okay. So, and I love it because it's such a fun experiment to see, like, why are people drawn to other people? And I crack up. I'm, like, watching this, and then JJ and I will pause and be like, do you see what they're doing there? And we'll, like, psychoanalyze them. It's amazing because it'll be like they're in the pods. They can't see each other, right? And it's supposed to be based on, like, emotional connection outside of physical, which I do love that concept. But then they're connecting on these emotional things of, like, oh, my favorite song is, this song. And they're like, oh, no way. That's my favorite song. This is a sign. Like, nobody loves that song, and you love that song. I feel so connected to you. And I'm like, this is the most ridiculous thing that I've ever heard. Like, you're literally going to build a connection based on 2 songs that y'all like. It's so crazy. And they say things of like, I just really feel like you would fit so well into my life. And I'm like, oh my gosh, just so selfishly minded of like, I'm just trying to find someone that fits so perfectly in this little round peg that I have for them sitting next to me. And I'm like, man, that is so not what God calls us to. And so it's fascinating to me. But honestly, the amount of people that we talk to in Christian dating, they don't really date that much differently. They really look for, like, how can this person best suit me and fit into my life? Like, what can they give me? What can they bring to me? How do I feel about our connection and our chemistry and the spark? And then coming to attraction, man, that's a whole discussion, which I can talk about. Should I mention?
Yeah, I mean, do you believe in type? Do you believe? Because
Yeah.
I think a lot of times people are looking for their type, or they're looking for someone that they had prayed over a list for how many years, right? And
For
so
sure.
they might have, like, this person might be amazing. And I see this all the time where I think we have amazing guys, for the record, at our church. But, you know, there's just a type that I feel like sometimes people are looking for.
There was no like positive feedback from me.
The girls are like, no.
There was some amazing brothers in Beloved.
Yeah.
I got your back, bro. I don't know what's going on here.
Yeah, that was...
Too many non-responsive Asians in this house. I know they want to show some love.
Yeah,
to the
that
brothers.
was me throwing a bone for you guys here, okay, boys. So, I mean, how important do you think that is? Because even growing up, we're told to make a list, pray over it, and if that person fits the list, praise God, right? But I don't think that happens very often, right? So
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about this at the workshop tonight, like really in depth. But yeah, a lot of y'all have types, and I just have a question. And we'll talk about this again, more detail tonight. Has your type worked out for you? Like, literally. If you have a type and you've always said, they're not my type. Like, has that worked out for you? Are you married? Because there's just so much I can say on this, but type is really often a construct of actually deficits that we haven't gotten as children that then we're looking for in another person. And so we really have to debunk type. Like, I was the girl that always was like, no, they're not my type. And I guarantee every single in this room has said either consciously in your head or, you know, subconsciously, I mean, or out loud, like, no, they're not my type. And so I'd love you to just think about why. Why have you even said that? What is really underneath that? And then in terms of attraction, I mean, everyone is so worried about attraction. There are 5 different types of attraction, which we'll mention more in depth at the workshop tonight. But the thing is that physical attraction is just one layer of attraction. And yes, we don't believe that at the end of the day, at the altar, you should be standing there being like, oh, I don't want to kiss them. Like, oh, this just is like so gross. Like, I don't want to do anything with them. Like, that is, you know, people are afraid that that's, when I say challenge attraction, they're like, I'm going to end up with like Shrek or something. You know, they're so afraid that they're going to end up with somebody that they're not physically attracted to. But like our physical attraction standards are bonkers. Like, they're crazy. JJ always says this, like, back in the day, you only saw the people around you, right? We didn't have social media. We didn't have Kim Kardashian and all these crazy bodies out there that we see now on the internet and on TV. We just saw what was in our local neighborhood, okay? And so, like, you didn't have any other reference for different bodies and all of these things. You just saw what was around you, and attraction was just so different. And how you looked at people and how you judged them on a scale from what is physically attractive to not was so different. In fact, it is always a sliding scale. I mean, back in the day, being ultra curvy was the pinnacle. That was what men were into because it meant these women were of better society because they could actually afford food. The skinny woman, she was not in, like, people were not into that person because it meant that she couldn't even afford food. So it's so interesting, like, our standards have changed through time. So physicality, man, I can go on and on about that, but I'm not saying there should be 0% physical attraction, but I do think that that can open up, and that can be, it can develop over time, basically, as well as the other buckets of attraction, which are, at the end of the day, sometimes even more important. Like, they really are more important than just the physical attraction.
Yeah, I love that because I wanted to ask you specifically about online dating because, again, we missed that world. He's like, I saved you from that world. but high ego here. He's really confident, man. But he was like, I saved you from that world. But I do think that there's a lot of, I don't even want to say, there's a lot of good experiences, but a lot of tough experiences, right? And one thing that I often hear that I want to see if you would challenge is this idea of, is there someone better, right? Because you can swipe. You can just, and even, you might even match with someone and you're on a date with them and you're getting to know them, but you're thinking, is there someone better that would pop up on my app or whatever, right? And that just wasn't the case. Like what Kait said, you were just meeting with people in your neighborhood. We didn't have social media and online dating apps back then. And I think that there's a different mindset that sets in with the online dating world, right? So do you have any thoughts on that?
Totally. So many thoughts. I mean, we are in a culture of consumption, right? I mean, Amazon Prime is my favorite thing ever. I actually hate to where we moved in Tennessee. Like now, instead of getting it overnight or the same day, it takes like 3 days. I don't know why. And I'm so upset about it. I'm like, I want it today, okay? I want it right now. And I have to wait 3 days? What is this Amazon Prime? Anyway, so we live in this culture and society where we can get things instantly. And like there's so many options. And like there are benefits to that in some ways. But when it comes to dating, we've become this consumeristic culture, right? And we just have to admit to that. Like we are bombarded by that. We even as individuals have become consumeristic. TikTok, swipe, 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 consuming. Instagram, same thing. Netflix, like literally everything, we've become a consumeristic culture. And if I don't like it, I can go to the next. It's really easy. And so on dating apps, it's really easy to do that same exact thing. Swipe left, swipe right, swipe, swipe, swipe. And I think one thing I would say to that is to pause while you're swiping and really ask yourself, why am I swiping? Whichever way you're swiping. Like, why am I swiping right? Why am I swiping left? Like, take a pause and take inventory. Like, why? I mean, I get it. If he's holding up a fish photo and you just hate that, fine, swipe left, okay? But or like the gym selfies. Oh, I just love those gym selfies.
Don't do gym selfies, guys. Don't do gym selfies.
And girls have them too. It's also the ladies. But, you know, if it's just because of other things on our profile that you're like, no, oh, the height, no, location, no, oh, not that ethnicity, oh, gosh, I don't like, not sure about that smile. Like those things become super superficial. And those are the reasons often we're swiping certain ways. And so is there someone else better for you? Probably. There could be. I mean, literally, there could be a better guy for me than JJ out there in the world. Who knows? But God doesn't say like that this goes into the one. Is there one sole person for you out there in the world? And are you on this chase just to find that one sole person? No, if we were to do that, you guys, this would be like the most torturous journey of all time. You know, because I probably would have broken up with JJ multiple times and gone to other guys once I saw some flaws in JJ. Because, oh no, that's not exactly what I want. Let's go to the next. I have to find the one sole person that will perfectly complement me in every single way. That is such an unfair thing to look for. Again, coming back to the 1 + 1 = 3. Like kingdom-minded, are we together better for the kingdom than apart? So yeah, there are maybe going to be people that are better for you than others. But love ultimately is a choice. And our friend J.P. Pokluda always says, love is forged, not found. So think about that. Love is forged, not found. We're not just trying to find the love of our life. We're trying to forge love, which when you think of something being forged, it can be hard. There might be some sparks. It can take a lot of melding and shaping and some challenge to forge love. And so when there might be somebody better for you, sure. But at the end of the day, you are choosing that person, knowing their flaws, which, by the way, if you are anywhere near getting engaged and I ask you the question, well, what are some of the things what are some of their flaws or what are their weak points? If you say to me, they're just amazing. They're so perfect. They really have 0 red flags, orange flags. They have nothing wrong with them. That in and of itself is a red flag, okay? Because you do not want to get married to somebody that you don't know what their flaws are. Yeah. And so at the end of the day, on your altar, if you are at the altar, you don't want to marry that person because they are just the perfect person in the entire world. You want to marry that person with a conscious choice of I'm choosing every day to love this person no matter what adversity comes in our way, in sickness and in health. No matter what happens, I am choosing this because guess what? That person will fail you, right? That person will disappoint you. And you're going to, if you have the mentality of like, this person is perfect, I found this perfect person, then when they're not perfect, you will so easily go to, well, let me find the person that is.
Yeah, a few things I wanted to mention. Andrea and I were literally talking about this yesterday in preparation for today. Like, we're the opposite of our previous types. Like, we had a little bit of vulnerable conversation. She was talking about that one guy, you know what I'm saying? And because I'll keep the details out. And I talked about the many girls in the past. And we're like, literally the polar opposites of who we were attracted before. And I like how you said attraction is only physical attraction is like one of the 5 different types of attractions. The reason why I bring that up is I have pastored and counseled couples who are like infatuated with each other. Y'all know those couples who are like, they're gone. Like they started dating, you haven't seen them in like 8 months, right?
That's called submarining, by the way. They go underneath the surface and they pop back up and they're like, we're engaged. We're like, what?
You know what's crazy? A lot of those people end up separated. A lot of them. Because it was such a physically driven attraction that once that subsided, they realized we don't complement each other in any other way. What happened with us, because there was a lot of, Andrea was so like reserved. I remember at one point I literally had this thought, is she asexual? Like, is she like so, I literally had this thought, like, is she so prude? Because she's PK, because I'm still new to this world. And I was like, am I gonna have to marry someone that we have no like physical romance? And I remember thinking, I'll still do it, right? But here's my point. I was younger, okay? But my point is, because we didn't get physically intimate for many, many years, even holding hands or anything when I was pursuing her, we accelerated in all the other areas of attraction. Our spiritual attraction accelerated. Our mental stimulation when we have conversations stimulated. Our friendship stimulated. Our chemistry in working together was accelerated. And then I still remember when we finally got together after 2.5 years of me pursuing her, she held my hand. And I said, oh my God. I remember I was like, oh, she's attracted to me. You know what I mean?
You're like immediately sweating. You're like,
yeah, but it was like she held back so much. I just didn't think that was there, but it was so contrary to everything I ever experienced prior to that.
When we started dating,
I'm gonna get my water
he
bottle.
was like, honey, I really thought you were asexual. I was like, wow, but you were still willing to date me. And so I thought that was so funny. But yeah, I think that's so important, right? I love how you talked about the different buckets of attraction, because I think people get really hung up on the physical aspect. Like, I don't feel a physical attraction when, for us, that really wasn't there in the beginning. But we were able to forge love through friendship, getting to know each other. I actually found out he's really funny. I didn't think you were funny, so that was really funny.
I mean, I'll just say same with JJ and I. Like, if you guys don't know our story, JJ is 5.5 years younger than me. And at the time we met, he had blue hair, and that's my baby. And
blue hair and 5 years younger.
Yeah.
There's hope, brothers.
Yeah,
that just your stock just went up by 25%. Yeah, go ahead.
And black earrings. Okay, let's just continue. Black earrings. He wore like, this wasn't cool back a few years ago. Like, he wore these like joggers where I call them diaper pants. It literally looks like he's wearing a diaper.
JJ literally just went like this to me.
And I mean, I went on his Instagram to do some stalking of him when these gals said he wanted to be set up with me. And I was like, who is this guy? And every single photo on his Instagram was like a different hairstyle. It was like he had a black bushy mustache, okay, that he had dyed black just to have a power stash. Then I saw another photo where he was like Jack Sparrow with like these, you know, the whatever thing right here and eyeliner. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And then there's a photo with him with the giant bushy beard. I'm like, oh gosh, what is even living inside that beard? And then he had cornrows. Every single photo was just like a different JJ, a different version of JJ. And I was like, this is weird. This guy is very interesting. But what I loved about it is that I could also see that he didn't care what people thought about him. But I will say, like, that first month of dating him, we actually dated long distance. He lived in Seattle at the time. And I really enjoyed his character, conversations. I literally thought there's no way I'd be attracted or into a guy that is 5.5 years younger than me. Just never, ever. Like, those guys are so mature, right? That was my mindset. And I was also at the time going on dates with a guy who's in his 40s. So I'm like, surely this guy's way more mature. But honestly, no. And I'm so glad that I gave JJ a shot, because I almost said, that is so not my thing. Blue hair, 5.5 years younger, the style, like super strange. His hygiene when we did meet in person was questionable. And I don't mean that he smelled per se, but more so, I love the story. We went to In-N-Out, and just the way he,
That's the confident man right there, dog. That's what I'm talking about.
he just was like shoveling. He calls it like full mouth effect. Like you have to keep having food in your mouth at all times. And he'll shovel down food. And I was just sitting there like, oh my gosh. And then he was the kind of guy that, licks his finger like. And I was like, oh my gosh. But then the best part was he went to take our trash. We were eating in the car. He went to take it to the trash can. And the trash can was full at In-N-Out. And so he's being a good Samaritan, right? And he opens the trash window and uses his other hand to push the trash in, right? And then stuffs his trash in, which, is sweet, until he doesn't wash his hands and tries to touch me in any capacity. I'm like, oh my gosh. So, there were a lot of things going a little bit against him. I'm like, this is a lot.
Hey, I'll give you the mic next time you're here, bro. Tell your side, dog.
Wants to defend himself. But, and so after our first month of dating, I really questioned him. I don't know. I don't know if I can date this guy. He has so many things I'm looking for, but I'm just not sure I'm physically into him. Not because he's ugly, by any means. He's not ugly. It was just all these factors that I was like, I don't know. The way he does his hair, the style. I don't know about these things. And I had a friend who thankfully was like, Kait, literally, this is what you tell people to do. You tell them to overlook those things and keep dating them if they have amazing character. So you have to do that. Who cares about the hair? That can change. Who cares about the style? Who cares if he smacks his food? Literally, that's the least of your worries if he has great godly character and loves Jesus, right? And is pursuing you and is so clear with his intentions. And I'm like, you're right. And to this day, everyone always asks, well, are you attracted to him? Or do you does the idea of him gross you out? I'm like, well, we clearly made a baby. So obviously, I'm not grossed out by him anymore. And I wasn't grossed out throughout us dating. It grew, but it wasn't this instant, oh my gosh, he's the hottest guy I've ever seen.
JJ, I didn't know about the blue hair, but I'm glad you mentioned that. I'm going to look for pictures. But we're going to start, I'm going to start landing this plane. It goes by so fast with you, Kait. It's just so fun. But I wanted to take a moment to address those of you guys in this room that are in a season of waiting, maybe feel like have been waiting a long time. And I want to take a moment to even acknowledge those of you guys in this room that are even grieving because you have been waiting. You thought, oh, by this age, I thought I would have a family. I thought I would be married. I thought I would have a wife and kids and, a house. I didn't want the house, but I at least wanted a family, right? And so there are some of us in this room that are in a season of waiting, grieving, trying to hope, but at the same time thinking, am I not ready? Is God punishing me? Or is God making me wait till I earn this marriage or this relationship? And I just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge that because I think that's a very real reality for many people in this room. And, what would you say to someone who is waiting and grieving and feeling like, is God keeping me waiting because I'm just not ready? And I hear that often. And so, I just wanted to see.
Yeah, and that's so many people that we talk to. I mean, the majority of people we actually end up coaching are in their 30s and 40s, and they come to us being like, man, this is not where I thought I would be. And I will level set with you. I got married at 33, so we haven't even been 2 years married at this point. And I was one of the last people in my friend group that was single. And and I had tried all the different things, and I'm like, it's still not happening, and I am a bridesmaid again, and I'm going to that wedding again, and I'm feeling like I'm dating in a better way now, but still, here's my life. And so just to encourage you, that is a very real feeling, and I would never want you to just pray it away. Sometimes we're like, don't feel that way anymore. Don't feel so just pray it away, kind of because that's where we suppress our feelings, and God wants us to come to him being fully ourselves with how we feel and our grief. And we get such a picture of that in the Psalms. So he knows how you're feeling, and he just wants to invite you to be open with how you're feeling with him. And so definitely process your grief. Definitely do whatever you have to do to just be okay with the Lord and make sure that you are fully getting that out of your system. Now, I say that to say there's a difference between grieving and holding on to hope and joy and being able to find that again versus grieving that leads to the depths of despair, okay? And I see singles often going down into the depths of despair because what happens when we grieve without trying to cling at all to the goodness of God and find renewed hope is we often go to this mindset of, well, God must not hear me. I must be the only one. Like, what am I doing wrong? There's no good guys out there. Nobody likes me. Almost like this, what I hate to say, but truth is we start feeling like the victim in our life. Like, our life wasn't supposed to be this way. And God clearly doesn't know what he's doing because this was not supposed to be the plan, right? And so what often ends up happening is we get stuck. We get stuck in this mindset of guys don't really like me. Girls don't really like me. I'm not really worthy. It's never going to happen for me. God does it for that person, but he's not going to do it for me. Or maybe I'm just going to have to settle because I'm not going to actually meet someone that's good because all the people that I am interested in never like me. It's always those people that I'm not really interested in, and those must be my only options. And so if you're in this place, which I have found myself, I would say it's okay if you are there. But let's take some steps to get back to grief that is looking towards hope instead of grief that leads to the depths of despair. Because ultimately that stuckness, what I see over and over is the stuckness will actually lead to a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you stay stuck, you're only going to be looking for lack around you. So an amazing guy or girl may come along, but if you already believe God doesn't really have good things for me, or I'm not really worthy of this person, they're not going to like me, then you might shoot your shot. Maybe you do, but you're not going to shoot it with confidence. You're going to shoot it with expectation. You're going to shoot it with like, please, please like me, love me, love me, like a performance. You need to like me so that it is proven that I'm worthy of love. Versus if you're grieving but holding on to hope and you can still lean into the confidence of knowing who God says that you are, then you might shoot your shot, drop the hanky, and you're like, hey, I'm going to do this because even though I'm sometimes sad about my singleness, I still believe that God is good. And even if this person says no, that doesn't mean that there's nobody else out there. That doesn't mean that I'm any less worthy of love. And so if you're stuck in this season of despair, the stuckness, I would really love to see you cling to who does God say that you are? When I was at my lowest after that abusive relationship, I had no idea who Kait was. And I literally had to say to the Lord and admit to myself that I actually hated myself. There was not one thing that I even liked about myself. If I went out there and dated in that season, that would have been the most miserable, self-fulfilling, horrible prophecy in like my entire dating life, right? And so I had to actually admit to God, like, I don't know if I really like myself. I don't really even know like what you have called me to do. Like, I don't really know what unique things there are about me because I'm so busy trying to be someone to prove myself to all these guys and people around me. And so if that's you, I just would love to encourage you to go on a journey of just one day at a time. Like, who does God say that you are? Because God loves you so deeply and so intimately. And he has not made a mistake with you and who he has crafted you to be. And if anybody has broken your heart or has mistreated you, it doesn't have to define you. Like, only God's love ultimately can truly define us. And so my challenge for anybody in that depths of despair is to say, okay, God, what lies do I have to remove about who the world has or guys have said about me or other girls have said about me? And how can I cling to actually truths of who you say that I am? Yeah, maybe a little bit quirky, but maybe that's awesome. Maybe that's actually a cool thing about me. Maybe I am a little bit awkward, but maybe the awkwardness is kind of cute to the right person, right? Who does God say that you are? And I want you to build the list of things, what we call in our program, School of Dating, we call it the Godfidence list. I know it sounds so cheesy, but it's like godly confidence, like who does God say that you are? And an exercise you can do within that is ask your closest friends. What do they love about you? Your friends are not your friends by force, right? They're friends with you because they like something about you. Hopefully they're not your friends by force. And so ask them, like, hey, I know this is kind of weird, but like, hey, Kait said to do this. Like, why are you friends with me? What do I bring to your life? What do you see in me? What good things do you see in me? And start building that list of the qualities that make you uniquely who you are. These qualities that if you can lean back on this list of godly confidence, then the rejection comes in, it's bulletproof. Because the rejection doesn't define you. This list, this Godfidence list of who you are is ultimately what defines you. So
I love that. I mean, I feel like a lot of times, I remember last year or a couple years ago, someone was like, pastors keep telling me to wait, and waiting means you just serve God and you start running towards him, and hopefully someone can keep up with you. And I love that you're talking about, well, it doesn't just mean you're serving at church or working on your relationship with God. It's also about you working on yourself and how you see yourself and what you feel like is so attractive about you, right? I'm going to finish with this question. How do you know if you're ready to date, if you're in a season of waiting? Because I know there are some people that are like, I don't know if I'm ready to. I feel like this has been a kind of an obsession. I don't know if I'm ready to. I've been waiting. I've been even fasting. But how do I know when I'm really ready to date?
yeah, such a good question. So this is going to be pretty practical of an answer. I will first start by saying there's no perfect time to date. Like sometimes people are afraid to put themselves out there because they're waiting for like perfection. And you're not going to be perfectly ready to date, okay? You may think you're really in a good place, and then you go on dates and you're like freaking out, have anxiety, all these things, and that's okay. Like dating is a learning process. But I will say there are probably certain times that are better to date in your life than others. So the first question that you want to ask yourself is, are you in any seasons of transition? And what I mean by that in seasons of transition is this. There's 4 different elements to that. Are you grieving anything? Did you just lose somebody in your life? Or is there some really hard situation that you are currently actively grieving? That's not a great time to date. Did you just go through a breakup? Like, I'm just not a fan of the rebound. Let's go back out there and date, and that's going to help me get over this person? No. Like, take space and time to actually grieve and process that breakup, and it may be different for different people. So if you just went through a breakup, you should not be jumping on to the next boat of who's the next thing, and that'll help me heal myself. The next thing is, did you just move or get a new job? If you are going through a massive life transition like that, it's probably not the best time to then let me get on a dating app. Like, I'm trying to focus on this thing that God has called me to, this brand new job or this brand new city. And some people look to the dating apps or dating to try to meet new people and like not feel lonely. But I ultimately think that's not a good intention of going on those dating apps. It's not a great intention to date in a season of massive transition. And so those are a few questions to ask yourself, but I would also ask yourself, are you actually over your exes, okay? And how do you know you're over your ex? Everyone always asks me this question. Does the thought of them like trigger you intensely? Does the thought of them, like their name popping up on your phone, their name being brought up in conversation, seeing them out and about, does that create a reaction within your body? You start sweating, you start like anxiety comes over you? Because if that's the case, there's probably just some more healing that needs to be done. Also, how do you know if you're not over your ex? Can you only say bad things about them? If you're only saying bad things about your ex, you are not over your ex. You have some bitterness and you have some resentment, and you need to work through that, because it is never it actually is detrimental to you, your healing, your journey, to have bitterness and resentment to anybody in your life. So if you can't say a single positive thing about your ex, even if they were abusive, okay? I'm not saying to just sugarcoat that under the rug, but like you need to get to a place of even healthy compassion for the way that they potentially mistreated you. You know, a lot of hurt people. And so it doesn't excuse their actions, But JJ always says what is it? It's understandable, but it's not excusable, right? So I may understand that I can come to understanding of like, oh, they treated me this way because they had a really bad childhood. But it's not excusable. I'm not going to continue to deal with it. I'm not going to continue to be in a relationship with somebody that does those things. But if you can't get to the level of, okay, I can understand that this person is very unhealthy, and that comes from a lot of wounding in their past. And I'm going to have compassion and grace and ultimately mercy, because mercy is giving somebody what they don't deserve. And so I'm going to have mercy for this person. Doesn't mean I'm getting back with them, okay? But if you can't get to that place and actively talk about your ex in a healthy way, then you're also not ready to date. And then the last thing I would say is, what do your friends think? Okay? Do your friends think that you are ready to date? Like, do they see healthy fruit in your life? Do they see healthy patterns? Do they see that you are pursuing the Lord wholeheartedly? Do they see you talking negatively about yourself? Do they see you hyper-focusing on your ex? Do they see you hyper-focusing on dating and maybe it's become an idol in your life? Ask your friends like, hey, I want to date from a healthy place. Do you actually think that I'm ready to date? Like, would you actively say that? A great question, JJ always says this too, is if you met the person that you were to marry tomorrow, would you actually be ready to get married to them? Like literally tomorrow, if you met them, would you be ready to get married to them? That's a good litmus test. If you're like, no, oh my gosh, I'm not ready. I'm working on this, that, and the other. Okay, then maybe this is not the best time to date. So those are a few tips on how do you know you're ready to date.
Thanks, Kate. I love that. We're going to actually bring this time to a close, but before we do you want to share other resources that you have? Because, I mean, you can tell she's passionate about dating, and I know her passion is also to see people dating and being in a relationship from a place of wholeness and healing. And so what resources do you guys offer at Heart of Dating?
Yeah, so we have our podcast that comes out every Wednesday and Friday. For the dudes, oh yeah, we have a thing up there. Amazing. So for the dudes, JJ has a man's mini-sode every Friday. The ladies still listen, it's fine. But we have a specific episode on Friday for the guys, and then Wednesday we have an episode every week for both guys and girls. Outside of the podcast, we do events. You'll see up there this fall, we have Camp HOD happening in Asheville, North Carolina, which I know is far from here, but it's so beautiful in the fall, you guys. I've actually never been, but I've heard it's amazing. I'm like, I really want to go, so I'm pumped. Eleanor will be there too. And then every year we do one big Heart of Dating conference. This next year, it's going to be on Valentine's Day. So can't think of a better time to honestly come together as singles than on Valentine's Day when, everyone's out there doing things. And you're like, oh, actually, I have plans on Valentine's Day, right? No, I got plans. They're like, what are you doing? I'm going to a singles conference. Yeah. Which is a not awkward singles conference, by the way. It's not weird. And so we do a yearly conference. And we also lastly have an 8-week mentorship program called School of Dating. And actually one of our coaches, Jamie, is right there. And it's a very intensive program though, y'all. But it is our favorite thing because we get really raw with people and work through some inner healing, inner childhood stuff. And then we go into dating profiles, leaning into your feminine, first dates, communicating your boundaries, how to communicate your needs, all of those things in that 8-week program. So yeah.
Wow, can y'all give it up for Kate for coming here? She actually flew in with her husband and their baby from Nashville to be with us. We love you guys. For those of you guys who did register, today we have 80 people who RSVP for our dating workshop. At 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. is the mingling and some other things?
Yeah, no. 5:45. Sorry, not 5 o'clock. 5:45 is check-in, 6 o'clock. Yeah. And guys, seating is first come, first serve. So show up early.
Just a quick announcement. There have been people who are saying, I'm just going to show up. We have no space for you. So we're so sorry. It is max capacity. We'll be in Whittier at the Smoking Tiger Cafe. So thank you guys for coming. We'll see y'all next week. Love y'all. Peace.
Woo!